What are the latest injury updates for the key players on your fantasy football teams ahead of Week 2's Sunday and Monday games? And what should you do with your picks on FanDuel, DraftKings, and PrizePicks this week? It's time to break it down right here, right now, as we begin another edition and close another week of Locked On Fantasy Football.
Are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer. I'm not doing this. I'm writing about NFL and fantasy football for sportingnews.com. We got the fallout of the Chargers-Chiefs thriller there on Thursday Night Football, the first one on Amazon Prime Video. It lived up to some of the expectations in fantasy. It was a bit of a letdown in other areas, but 27-24, Kansas City wins at home, holds off Justin Herbert, and the Chargers just gets enough points, including a pick six of Justin Herbert to win that game. So we'll break that game down briefly here for you at the top of today's show. Then we'll get into the injury reports. It is pretty lengthy already here for week 2. We're going to get the official designations later on Friday, but some situations we're monitoring, things you must adjust to perhaps this weekend when you're making those lineup decisions. So we'll get into that. Then we'll go through the FanDuel DraftKings values there. We're looking at cash games on FD and tournaments on DK there, the picks that we like this week and how you can construct a lineup that can yield you results. And we know our Locked On Fantasy Football show is sponsored by PrizePicks. We're going to give you 5 PrizePicks that we like here, players to go under or over their projection for yardage here in week 2. So we'll get into all of that over our 3 segments here to close the week on Locked On Fantasy Football. And again, thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. We're free and available to you on all platforms. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, speaking of where the game starts, the game ended last night there between the Chiefs and Chargers. A quick look at what happened there. Well, the Chargers, we knew Mike Williams was going to have a monster game with no Keenan Allen with the hamstring injury. He comes through. DeAndre Carter looked pretty good, but Josh Palmer does catch in there with that last touchdown from Justin Herbert. Herbert goes for more than 330 yards, gets the 3 scores, 1 to Williams, 1 late to Palmer, and 1 for the second consecutive week to the rookie fullback Xander Horvath. So what has been disappointing people is Austin Eckler's usage. He was very good in PPR. He's going to get the volume of the catches, but still no touchdowns here for Eckler. Very modest scrimmage game again. So Eckler, after the monster 2021 season in which he scored 20 TDs, still not in the end zone. They've also been using Sonny Michel in red zone situations or throwing near the goal line here. And we also know there was the Herbert pick 6 in the red zone where he had a miscommunication with Gerald Everett there. And the Chiefs, Jalen Watson jumped the route and took it all the way back, and that was the difference in the game. So Herbert, even with the pick 6, had a brilliant fantasy game. He's on track, as we expected, to flirt with 50 touchdown passes, 3 in week 1, 3 in week 2. He's right on track for 51 this season. So we know Herbert was going to have a big year. They're throwing like ton in Los Angeles now, so good start there, but we want Eckler to get going. We'll see if Allen can return from that hamstring injury with the mini bye here ahead of a game against the Jaguars. We want him back. It's a great matchup next week. So Herbert banged up, ribs injury. Speaking of injuries, he gutted through it, and he made some amazing passes there. He threw the long ball to Carter, and then on 4th down again, he converted the touchdown to Palmer. He gutted it out. What a performance there for Herbert. Hung in there for his reality team, hung in there for our fantasy team. So I would expect he's okay. Let's just monitor the ribs injury there for the next game. Now, for the Chiefs, it was a tough night for their principal pass catchers. The touchdowns went to Justin Watson and to Jerick McKinnon on the backfield. And, of course, they had the defensive touchdowns. Only 2 scores from Mahomes. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a little quiet with his touches here. Piecemeal again with McKinnon, a little bit of Isaiah Pacheco, only this one, but McKinnon got involved, got the score here. Travis Kelce shut down 5 for 51. So this is the first time in 3 seasons the Chargers have really slowed him down with Derwin James. He had a chance near the red zone, but couldn't finish it. Derwin James body slammed him to the turf. So quiet game for Kelce in relation to what you want from him every week here to go over 100 yards and have a good chance of scoring. He cooled off considerably. So did this whole passing offense from Arizona. So the Chargers played some tough zone defense. They weren't scared about anyone deep. We didn't see much of Sky Moore. He didn't have a catch in this game. Miko Hardman wasn't used in that capacity. Marcus Valdes-Scantling was nowhere to be found. He had the big play to Watson, which is a great buying time throw by Mahomes, and not much else there. So the Chiefs getting a little too committee-like, maybe not stretching the field. So a little bit concerning there for Juju Smith-Schuster that it's going to be a different guy every week. We were hearing this warning from Mahomes that they were going to be by committee, and it's been full-blown committee here in the first 2 games of the season. So we'll look into that a little bit more as we go along. Now, let's turn our attention to the other injuries we're monitoring here other than Herbert, and the Herbert will be a Week 3 situation. For Week 2, we know Dak Prescott is not starting at quarterback for the Cowboys, so Cooper Rush gets the call against the Bengals. I think he'll be okay getting the ball in the hands of playmakers. There's CeeDee Lamb. He's going to keep it simple. I don't like the running game at all this week, but do like Cooper Rush at least feeding CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz quite a bit. Mac Jones had an illness and a back issue. He'll play. You're not going to trust him or his receivers there in the game against the Steelers. So you do like Damon Harris from Andre Stevenson. Jameis Winston limited the back injury, but he's good to go. Tough matchup. I would not play him against the Buccaneers defense, however, in a revenge game. Zach Wilson will not start. We'll probably get a lot of volume from Joe Flacco in the game against the Browns. So not a lot of production yet for the Jets, and it's a tough matchup again. A good defense of the road, Cleveland. Damian Williams, it looks like he'll miss the game here with a ribs injury for the Falcons against the Rams. So that should make Tyler Algier, the rookie from BYU, active here, but Cordell Patterson in a strong lead role this week. Look at DeAndre Swift. We're a little bit worried about him. They're playing. He said he's going to play. He hasn't practiced 2 days with the ankle injury, but he swears he's going to play against the Commanders. We'll have to see. Could be a team decision here. The Ravens are going to get J.K. Dobbins back. He's gone full practice here. So 2 full practices. If he doesn't have any setbacks on Friday, he should be good to go. Brandon Bolden, notable for the Raiders with the hamstring. He did catch a touchdown last week, so it'll help maybe Josh Jacobs' volume a little bit if Amir Abdullah continues to fade there. You have Pierre Strong hasn't been a factor behind Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson. Ty Montgomery's on IR, so a lot of Harrison Stevenson I would expect against the Steelers' weak run defense. Alvin Kamara has a ribs issue as well, so this can be painful. Got to play through it, and it's a soreness issue. We'll see if it happens here for Kamara. If not, they're going to have to probably put this together with Mark Ingram and a little bit of Tony Jones Jr. And probably a little bit of Taysom Hill. So watch out for Kamara playing or not. Najee Harris, no concerns with him. Went full with the foot injury on Thursday, so he's good to go for this nice matchup with the Patriots. For those of you worried a little bit about Rashad Penny, the tough matchup against the 49ers, worry a little bit more because Ken Walker is going to come back here with this hernia. He's missed 1 game, but he's going to make his rookie debut there. Leonard Fournette, a little concerning with the hamstring early in the season, but he should be good to go against the Saints, his hometown team. Dontrell Hilliard, something we're going to watch for Monday night. Not like we're rushing to play him after his 2-reception touchdown game against the Bills, but a hamstring issue that can hurt him here. We know those are always tricky early in the season. We go to wide receiver. Rondale Moore looks like he's going to miss another game with a hamstring. James Prochet should be out there for Baltimore, but we know Devin Duvernay in the slot is really their number 2 behind Rashad Bateman. T. Higgins, we're going to see. He missed practice with a personal issue. He was limited on Wednesday there. So we'll see if he gets clearance here to play against the Cowboys. Of course, if he does that, you're going to put him in your lineups. Now, Michael Gallup on the other side of things, we'll see. I think he's limited here for 2 days, so it'll be hard for him to get going in this particular game. And maybe they want to be careful with him with Prescott out. KJ Hamler doesn't look good here with a knee and hip injury. That means more Albert Okwuegbunam. They're playing off Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy against the Texans. Al Lazard should return. He's gotten 2 limited practices with the ankle injury. He didn't practice all last week and missed the game against the Vikings. This week, he should be back in there against the Bears for Sunday night. Michael Pittman, we're going to watch. We're not too concerned yet with the quad, but he did not practice. So it was a mid-practice injury on Wednesday. It's a little bit concerning, so very telling to see what we get here. Alec Pierce doesn't look good either. The rookie from Cincinnati has a concussion, so they might have to really adjust and go with Paris Campbell here and look a little bit deeper to Michael Strahan and the other guys that they have on this roster. Van Jefferson's probably going to miss another game for the Rams. A lot of Cooper Kupp and Allen Robinson targets against the Falcons. Cedric Wilson should be in there with his quad injury, playing through it for the Dolphins against the Ravens. You have Wan'Dale Robinson not looking good here with a knee injury, 2 missed practices, so he's probably going to be out. Kadarius Toney was added there with a hamstring, and we know how tricky that can be. So it could be a little bit more Sterling Shepard against Carolina this week. You're looking at Chris Godwin not playing this week. He's missed 2 practices here. Mike Evans, a little bit concerning with the calf injury after he was downgraded on Thursday, but we'll see if he can go. Julio Jones is not in practice. Russell Gage is trying to work through the hamstring, and he got limited practice there. So we'll see how it plays out. Rashad Perriman also banged up on this team. So we'll see who the starting receivers are here for Tom Brady. And a little bit concerning with Brady here in week 2. Kyle Phillips, your slot receiver for the Titans, he's banged up here. The rookie from UCLA, shoulder injury. So we'll watch that if you're trying to get some cheap PPR points against the Bills on Monday night. We flipped to tight end here. Zach Ertz looks fully healthy this week. Last week it was a bit of a game time decision, but now he's got the full practice in with the calf. Hayden Hurst is going to be okay with a growing injury. Could have a bigger role here should Higgins sit out for the Bengals. David Njoku had a personal reason to miss practice there, but he should be okay for the Jets game. We would just like to see him get more targets here. Brevin Jordan, probably not going to play for the Texans. O.J. Howard probably going to get a little bit more run. I'm not going to say pick him up or play him this week. In fantasy, C.J. Uzomah was added midweek injury report for the Jets on Thursday, so we're worried about the hamstring here for Uzomah. So, yeah, I mean, if he's out, then maybe a little bit more Tyler Conklin there against the Browns and maybe a little bit of sleeper value there after Ian Thomas did some damage against the Cleveland defense last week. Then you're looking at George Kittle, 2 missed practices, the growing, probably out here against the Seahawks. We'll see if the improvement is there. It could be a tough game time decision because he plays in the late afternoon window there in week number 2. All right, so there's the notable injuries there. We're hoping the Packers get their offensive line healthy with David Bakhtiari and Elgton Jenkins. The Lions have some issues up front. The Rams do too. They're probably going to be without their center, Brian Allen. The Dolphins have the right tackle questionable there. It's Austin Jackson. So some things we're watching there here, and the Colts have a lot of injuries here. DeForest Buckner, Kenny Moore on top of Pittman and Pierce being concerns here this week. So we'll watch those here defensively, and those could affect what we want to do on Sunday with those matchups for sure in week number 2. All right, so we've taken care of the injury report. We will focus on DFS with FanDuel and DraftKings in our second segment here on Locked On Fantasy Football. Again, thanks so much for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. We're free and available to you on all platforms. Turo is the world's largest car-sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car you want wherever you want it from a community of local hosts. Browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget across the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom. Book a spacious SUV or minivan for a family road trip. Or get a classic or luxury car for a special event, birthday, or holiday. Find affordable economy cars if you're on a budget, just need to get from point A to point B. Test drive that new electric vehicle you've had your eye on and see how it fits into your everyday life. Many Turo hosts can even deliver the right car to you, right to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. So whatever experience you have at Turo, you can rest easy there that your drive is going to be comfortable and you won't have much to worry about there. So check in all the local hosts and get the ride that you're looking for. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply with that liability insurance. Ditch boring rental cars and find your drive only at Turo.com. All right, it is time to continue the show here on Locked On Fantasy Football. We're going to look at some DFS picks here, and we're going to do it this way. FanDuel cash games, because that's what we like to play, and DraftKings tournaments, because that's what we like to play there. So that's what we're going to do from our personal experience here on Locked On Fantasy Football. We did pretty well in cash games last week, so we're going to try to keep that up this week. Now, FanDuel, my pick here at quarterback is Derek Carr, 7,300. I think he'll rebound. The Cardinals' defense stinks. The weapons are there. It's going to be high volume opposite Kyler Murray. Everything is lining up here for Derek Carr. I love the price at 7,300. Cash games, I think he's as safe as it gets here at quarterback and a pretty good value where you don't have to pay up too much there at 7,300 on FanDuel. Now, on DraftKings, I do like Baker Mayfield, 5,300. A lot of people are going to fade him pretty hard, but I like what I saw in the second half from Mayfield against the Browns last week in that revenge game. The Giants are pretty tough on the run, so I think you'll see this Panthers team put the ball in the air, play off the run. There's going to be a lot of attention on McCaffrey. We saw that with Ryan Tannehill, had a pretty solid game there. Mayfield, very similar to Tannehill with the style of play. A little athletic, but going to be run dependent, playing off that to get the numbers. So I think he'll get it done here at 5,300, a good tournament pick. Again, I don't expect massive ownership here for Mayfield because, again, he's Mayfield, but there's some big opportunity against that Giants defense this week. All right. On FanDuel for running backs, Joe Mixon. I think the Bengals are going to have a positive game script and roll the Cowboys this week. So I want to have a guy bread and butter. He was excellent last week in cash games. So going back to Joe Mixon and that here this week, I think he can find the end zone, have a good scrimmage day as they build a lead with Joe Burrow. The Bengals and Raiders, two teams we really want to invest in based on the situations this week as much as possible. And I really like Carr. His weapons this week, if you want to pay up for Devontae Adams, you can do that. Definitely going to pay up for one of his key targets here in week 2. But Joe Mixon, Bengals, anything attached to them that is health-wise with Joe Burrow and that offense, I'm going to attach myself to this week as well. I also love the price on FanDuel for Javonte Williams here. Maybe a little bit forgotten because he wasn't on the main slate last week, but I think he's going to have a big game. People have a perception that he loses key touches to Melvin Gordon, which is true, but he still gets good volume here. I like that duo of Mixon and Williams here. Now on DraftKings, I want to go for maybe a big shot here, that a little bit of volatility there depending on the game script. But Antonio Gibson, 6,200, coming off that big game against the Jaguars, so settles in road game against the Lions this week. So I like that for some potential there. And Josh Jacobs, again, mentioned the injury to Brandon Bolden and the Raiders offense maybe being positioned to score a lot of points there against the Cardinals. He should be busy here. And Jacobs can find the end zone on a short run, and I think he'll be a little bit more involved in the passing game should Bolden sit out. So I like that price here for Josh Jacobs. I thought he looked pretty good last week against the Chargers. I think he'll look a little bit better this week against the Cardinals. All right, FanDuel, our cash game picks here. Interesting. So we will look at stacking Mayfield with DJ Moore, but I like him a lot in cash games. I think they'll have an overcorrection to get him all involved for 6,200. I like Terry McLaurin quite a bit. You can also attach him to Carson Wentz in tournaments if you're playing that. 7,300. Like that stack with McLaurin. It's going to really help that Jahan Dotson and Deebo Samuel or Curtis Samuel are legitimate threats there. It does help Deebo Samuel as a threat to help Brandon Ayuk this week if you're looking in that direction. But Terry McLaurin has some help in Washington that's really helpful for his value here. So 7,300 for him, 6,200 for Moore. So pretty good combination right there in between for the price point on FanDuel. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, it's a little bit of a transitive property here. Washington Commanders, really bad against slot receivers. We saw that last week against Christian Kirk, who went off for the Jaguars. So St. Brown profiles similarly. Same type of issues Washington has inside. Love Amon-Ra St. Brown. We know the value is going to be there and the volume for sure at 6,900 on FanDuel. Now, DraftKings willing to take a few more shots here, and one of them is Cortland Sutton. It's 6,100. It'll be an overcorrection. Jerry Jeudy got the big play last week, but Sutton should destroy this Texan secondary, much like Michael Pittman Jr. did last week. So love Sutton here this week. We do like Pittman again this week, but we're a little bit concerned about that quad injury, so we're going to not recommend him for now. But if you want to invest highly in Pittman again, he came through last week. I love him in cash games, especially in week 2. Allen Robinson, 5,500. I like this. Again, people are going to be off him a little bit because that terrible game and the bad vibes from the Rams opener against the Bills. I get it. People are looking at A.J. Terrell and Casey Hayward, and we talk about Hayward not being the once cover man he was. He's bounced around a little bit. He's got a little older here. Terrell, they usually don't flip sides, but I could also see Terrell trying to contain Cooper Kupp, so that should open things up for Robinson. Jefferson not playing this week, so I think they're going to make a conscious overcorrection effort to get the ball to Robinson, and he has a chance for multiple touchdowns because that's something they've talked about, his red zone role playing off Kupp here this season. You're looking at Donovan Peoples-Jones as well, 4,400. I like the chemistry that he had with Jacoby Brissett. He's a big play threat. We saw what happened to the Jets last week. Devin Duvernay in the slot, Rashad Bateman outside, struggled to protecting against the deep ball because they don't have much of a pass rush. I know Jacoby Brissett is not a deep thrower, but he has a pretty big arm. I think he'll be protected here to throw downfield with his offensive line. So Donovan Peoples-Jones looks like, for now, the Browns' preferred target as the number 2 versus Amari Cooper there for Jacoby Brissett. In their run-heavy offense, they're going to be run. The game script doesn't call for a lot of passes, but I see Peoples-Jones potentially breaking a long one there. So we're all on Nico Collins for the Texans, but DPJ, the other Michigan receiver in the NFL, note here, something to watch for there. Now, on FanDuel DraftKings, I only have one choice for your tight end. I want Darren Waller. I'm going to attach him to Derek Carr. You can also look at him as tournament play, but 6,800 on FanDuel, 5,600 on DraftKings. Darren Waller is my tight end this week. We saw what Travis Kelce did to this Cardinals defense. I get it. They have good safeties, but Jalen Thompson has a toe injury, so he's hurting. So Budda Baker could be flying solo. They moved Waller around the formation here. Hunter Renfrow, I think, will also have a rebound game, but I really like Waller this week. So he's my tight end either way we look at it. Now, there's a free space here for your defense. I think you have to take it. This team is probably going to be very highly owned. The prices came out before we knew Dak Prescott was going down here. So Bengals are only 3,900 on FanDuel, 2,200 on DraftKings. So really cheap defense going on the road against Rush here. Play them. I went as cheap as possible with the Dolphins last week, and it really paid off, and they had the defensive touchdown. Bengals have enough playmakers. Trey Hendrickson could rack up some sacks here. Rush definitely could make a big mistake. So cheap value allows you to really stack the rest of your lineup here. At flex, I mean, if I'm going to go on FanDuel, I don't have as much money, so I do like Chase Edmonds in a cash game. I think he'll get enough receptions there against the Ravens. The Ravens really have to give up something there in the passing game to backs. And finally, the flex play that you can look at, you can actually afford this player if you go on DK with some of the values, especially if you go down Peoples-Jones there, save some money at the other wide receiver spots. It allows you to get Jamar Chase. So, yeah, that's pretty nice to get Chase and a part of this Bengals passing game in there against the Cowboys. So really like that. I can also see a Burrow Chase stack there if you don't like a Carr, Waller, or Mayfield and more stack this week. So all kinds of ways you can attack and have some real success here in week number 2 on FanDuel and DraftKings, no matter what game you are playing. Now, we'll finally close with our PrizePicks picks. That means we'll talk about 5 numbers we really like here for attacking, a 1 under and a 4 overs there. So we'll get into that there in our final segment. Before we do that, I got to tell you more about BetOnline. Yep, BetOnline. It's week 2. It's a lot of exciting action here. You can get in on the action right now. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your pro and college football betting needs and sports information of the season. Find all the latest football league developments, game matchups, news, and podcasts, including this year's Week 2 games there. BetOnline is also your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including NFL, MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. All you have to do to get in on BetOnline is head to the website today or use a mobile device to learn about the trends and action happening. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, it is time to close the show and the week of shows here on Locked On Fantasy Football. We talked about PrizePicks being our sponsor. Now, keep in mind it's a good deal there for you. You can get that deposit match up to $100 there. All you do is pick 2 to 5 players, and you target them. Their PrizePicks projections are up. If they go over or under and you hit it right, you'll win money there. So good stuff there at PrizePicks. And here are our PrizePicks picks for the week to close the show. Let's start with Tom Brady. He's a sit for me in fantasy football. A lot of things are going on here. Donovan Smith, the left tackle, is the latest offensive line injury. Talked about all their wide receiver injuries here. I think the Bucks are going to be more of a running defense-based team this week against the Saints. Grinded away. The Todd Bowles is either playing well, Leonard Fournette running well. It's easier for a banged-up offensive line to run block here. So 275.5. It's a massive number for Tom Brady in this particular matchup where he struggles against the Saints here. Saints don't allow a lot in the passing game. They got a good pass rush for Cameron Jordan, Marshawn Lattimore, and some good cover guys as well. So even if some of the top players play, Mike Evans usually gets shut down by the Saints. But if it's dwindling a little bit, under 275.5 with Tom Brady for passing yards this week. Antonio Gibson, we told you how much we like him in tournaments, but 60.5 is his rushing total. Yeah, we'll take the over on that against the Lions, who really struggled with the Eagles' running game last week. So love that number for Antonio Gibson. Take advantage. It's going to go up here as long as Brian Robinson Jr. is out. But yeah, 60.5. Take the over there for what you get for Antonio Gibson. They're in a great matchup there. So DJ Moore, we talked about how I like him with Baker Mayfield this week. It is a DJ Moore week. They're going to overcorrect, get the ball in his hands. I think he reels off some nice runs after the catch here for the Panthers against the Giants here. So The secondary of the Giants, a lot of inexperience there. I think they'll correct to get more of the ball, 57.5. I think you can get that done in 2 or 3 catches, maybe even early in the game. So we want to get it out of the way. I think they'll pepper him with targets in this one, playing off Christian McCaffrey. So I love that. DJ Moore, 57.5 over there for his receiving yardage here in week 2. Another player, different position that I'm going to go with receiving yardage is Mark Andrews over 61.5. Here's why. I look at Xavier Howard, maybe being on Rashad Bateman. Devin Duvernay is going to slow down a little bit. I think they're going to go back to the bread and butter. Andrews was right on that number against the Jets last week. I think he'll be a little bit more involved. The Dolphins can struggle against the tight end. I know you didn't see a lot against them with Hunter Henry, but Brandon Jones, our safety's a little bit banged up. Their linebackers are not bad, but Mark Andrews is a special player. Lamar Jackson's going to feed him the ball. So I see Andrews getting in the end zone. I like about 70 receiving yards here. So it's not a big discrepancy that we think we can get out of Andrews, but I think he'll hit that number here and be involved as really the top target in this particular matchup, as that's where the Ravens will go, throwing most of the time in this game against Miami. He has a decent run defense as well, so Lamar's going to have to put it up. I think that's going to help Andrews. Now, this number is particularly low to me. We cashed in with Trey Lance going over the easy 37.5 rushing yards last week, even the slop when him not having a great game against the Bears, but Kyler Murray, 29.5. I mean, this is very low. I know Kyler's not running, but he's got to do something here. They're desperate. They're 0-1. They're on the road in Las Vegas. They got to get some plays here in the offense. And a lot more concern there about keeping up in a shootout here. So Kyler Murray, at least when things break down, I think the Raiders are going to win this game. There's going to be some space there for Murray to run. So 29.5, I should say. 20.5 would be easy, but 29.5, I'm feeling Kyler Murray gets at least 30 rushing yards, clears that pretty easily this week against the Raiders. And again, high-scoring game, a lot of ball moving there. They got to get Murray going in that aspect. And run, Murray, run. Let's get some numbers there for season long as well. And hopefully it's well over 30, so you can really cash in there if you got Murray in your starting lineups there this week. All right, there you have it. There's a breakdown of the injury report, our DFS report for FanDuel, DraftKings, and PrizePicks here, and we are looking at the Chargers-Chiefs takeaways there. We have a lot more takeaways coming for you on Monday. Our reaction to what we see on the field. We play panic or patience, results that really disappointed us, and if we should be freaked out by it. We'll also look at, are you for real? This is guys that come out of nowhere to produce, and if we should trust them for lineup calls or waiver wire ads there. And we'll look again at injuries because they're bound to be more coming out of week 2. So that's all as we start the progressive week-long known as Locked On Fantasy Football. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. Have a great weekend here, and good luck in all your contests, whether you're playing season-long or DFS. Now, make your second listen with Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson give you the expert NFL analysis you need in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. For Locked On Fantasy Football, this has been Vinnie Iyer. Have a great Saturday and Sunday. Get some wins under your belt here in week 2, and we'll catch you on the flip here on Locked On Fantasy Football.